Good evening once again. And yes, if you will be coming to our next lecture, and we have ready to share that information with you in the end of our study of today, then you'll see me another 3 lectures. So it's a kind of a series under general title Body and Mind Connection. So today we have part 1 only. Why I divided it in 4 parts? Because too much information, and I don't want to abuse your brain in one evening, keep you till 11 p.m. Okay. Do you know that actually when you talk about a person, you talk about somebody, and you have impression about a person, or if I would say I am, is actually what is my brain. Because in our brain is our thinking. We process everything in our brain. Our feelings, passions, love is there. Our personality, our character defects or positive, our motives is here. Our conscience, which tells you, the wrong direction, or you shouldn't say that, it's here in the brain. Scientists, for a long time, they're studying, and I would say, up to exhausting themselves, they're trying to understand how the brain works. But unfortunately, it still remains an unexplained mystery for them, how our brain works. Let me bring you just a couple phenomena that you will understand how phenomenal is this organ in our human body. In US, there is a lady which can remember, and she remembers everything to the details. So for example, if you ask her, in 1993, on March 7, she'll tell you exactly what happened that day as she walking was the street. She'll tell you the plate numbers on the car. She'll tell you what she was shopping in a store and how much she paid. Another lady, she had an accident. She was over 30. And suddenly, when she came back from coma, she began quoting the Psalms from Bible. So then immediately her husband was asked, are you a believer? Are you going to church? She said, no. So when actually they asked more questions, they found out that she was going to the church when she was 3 years old girl with her grandma. And never since she visited a church. How she was able to quote Psalms? She heard them in a church when she was 3 years old. Actually, our brain never, ever forgets anything. Everything we see, every second, what we see, every second, what we hear, what we feel, all our senses, they send signal to our brain, and it's recorded. We have to appreciate a wonderful skill of our brain to forget. If we wouldn't be able to forget, our brain would explode. It would be very hard to live. But we have that ability to forget. And this is very precious, very necessary tool in our brain to forget. The brain is a body organ. This is just a picture of an anatomical brain as it's located in our head. The brain to work needs certain things. As every organ, the brain is composed of microcells. And that little cell, each cell of a brain needs, it functions like a body. It needs to eat, it needs to drink, it needs to utilize the waste. We need oxygen. For proper brain work, we need oxygen. We need water. And we need nutrition. Let me talk a little bit more about this. Oxygen. How oxygen gets to the brain? I think you know that it's through the blood. So through the red cells of the blood, the oxygen is supplied to our brain. By the way, do you know why when a person is stressed, everybody recommends don't eat? Have you ever heard about it? We'll talk about stress next, actually this third part of this series. We'll talk about stress in details. Not to eat, because when we are stressed, all the blood vessels which supply blood to the intestine, to the stomach, are constricted. And the blood vessels which gives the blood to the brain, supplies blood to the brain, they are extended. So the more blood comes to brain, because more oxygen is needed, because brain is working harder at the moment. If there is no oxygen, we can compare brain like to a lamp. So the oxygen is kind of electricity for the lamp. As long as you have electricity, the brain works. The lamp is giving light. As soon as you cut the oxygen supply, the light turns off. When a person loses a heartbeat, we have maximum about 5 minutes to bring a person back to life. And you know, in many buildings, even in our church, even there in the kitchen, we have a little post, what to do if somebody is choking, what to do, how to do the, the compression on the heart. Why? Because this is a real emergency. If something happens, you have maximum 5 minutes to resuscitate a person, to bring back to life, to restore the heart beating and to supply oxygen to the brain. Otherwise, the brain cells dies. You know, even the Bible says, his breath goes forth. He returneth to his earth. In that very day his thoughts perish. It's in Psalms 146:4. Water. 70 to 75% of our brain is actually water. This is why we need enough supply of water to our brain. Do you know that when you feel thirsty, it's already kind of a late signal that your body really needs water? Because before the body sends a signal that you are thirsty, the blood from other tissues, the water from other tissues is taken to supply enough water for the brain. And then where you feel thirsty. But when you feel thirsty, the other tissues are already suffering lack of water. So this is why it's important throughout the day to drink water constantly, like every hour, drink a little bit of water. And we'll talk more about water some other time. The brain needs good food, wholesome, a good nutrition. And about this part of the subject, we'll talk next month. In February, our next lecture will be about food and brain. How the brain actually works. In our brain, I told you, there are billions and billions of tiny little cells. And if you see them in the microscope, they are all connected. They are all interlinked. All these cells, they are linked one to another, one group of cells to another group of cells. And then through nerves, they are linked to all the body organs. So starting from the very, very, very bottom, from our feet to my hair on my head. Actually, not the hair, but the root of the hair. Everything is connected through nerves to our brain. The neuron is actually the functioning cell of our nervous system. It has dendrites, which actually receives the signal and it has the axons or terminal which actually sends the signal. And the signal is going electrical spark. It's very, very low voltage, but it's electrical spark which actually jumps like this and goes to the very end where the signal has to reach. What do you think? How quick is that signal? It's pretty quick. The thoughts are quick, but before you even have time to think what happened, you withdraw your hands when you feel hot. No? So it's pretty quick. It's less than seconds, less than a second, and you withdraw your hand. During the First World War, actually this phenomenon was known before, but during the First World War, when there was a lot of handicapped people as veterans of war, a lot of people, who lost their arms, their legs, and scientists begin to study one phenomena. How this possible? Then you don't have a leg, but you feel that unexisted leg itching. And they call it a phantom pain. It's actually pain felt in a part of the body that has been lost or from which the brain no longer receives signals. So the soldiers who lost their arms, they were feeling a pain in that arm while the arm was not there. So then scientists realized that the pain is not in the arm. So when you feel a pain here in a hip, when you feel pain in abdominal area, if you feel pain in the chest, it's not there. The pain is not there. Pain is here. And the scientists begin to realize that everything starts from brain and everything ends in the brain. So, and they went, from that moment on, they went in the right direction to study the human brain. And they realized that everything is linked to the brain. And we feel pain just because some nervous receptors, which we have billions throughout our body, they feel pain, they feel hot, they feel cold, we smell, we see. Even what our eyes is just a receptor of light, but we don't see it with our eyes. We actually see with this part of our brain over here. That part is responsible for our vision. And sometimes what happens when people have certain infection and the infection destroys the nerves which connects the eyeball to the brain, the eyeball is completely healthy, but people lose their sight. There is no processing outside the brain. For example, when you go to shower and you put your hand to feel how hot or how cold is water, everything goes back to brain. So on your hand, those receptors, they analyze the and they send a signal to our brain. It's too hot or it's too cold. And then the brain sends signals to another hand to adjust, turn right or left the valve to adjust the water temperature. Everything is here. Take the brain out, nothing works. There is no person. It's actually just in the medical language, a living vegetable. Abuse of one organ will bring to destruction of others. Abuse of one system will affect all other systems. For example, let me bring you a practical example. Why people, after a good party, feel terrible headache next morning? Where we use the alcohol? Through the mouth and through stomach, into intestine. But what is affected by alcohol? The brain. Now, when you feel a tooth pain, how productive can you be at work? No. Why? So one little tooth destroys the production of the whole body. I mean, we'll talk more throughout this series how this works, and specifically we'll talk next time about the intestine, how it works, and how abuse of abdominal organs affect our brain. But that's next time. It's all about what kind of signal our brain sends to organs. So if our brain is intoxicated with due to wrong food, due to consumption of alcohol or tobacco, or due to just overeating, it affects our brain, and then it sends the wrong signal. The right signal helps body to helps healing process in any part of the body, and the wrong signal kind of puts an obstacle for healing of any body organ. Let me tell you a true story. When I was in a medical university in Ukraine, in one of clinics in our town, actually it was a clinic which were treating the cancers. It happened a accident, actually. I mean, it's a very sad situation. There were two patients who sent their biopsy to the lab, but their names and last names were the same. Like, for example, Johnson Smith and Johnson Smith. But, of course, they had a different date of birth. So when the test lab arrived, a nurse looked Johnson Smith, and she found the first Johnson Smith, and she inserted there for doctor later to review. Then there was another nurse who brought another test from lab, and she picks Johnson Smith and inserts it there. So one Johnson Smith, I'm just using this kind of name for our story because I don't remember exactly the name. He had just not a cancer, just a diverticulum of a colon, in colon. It's kind of a polyp which grows in the colon, and it's not malignant, so just a very light procedure to eliminate it. So they just cut it out and make it just a couple knots there, and that's it. Another person had a malignant cell, so it was actual cancer. But the biopsy was switched. Then what happened? The person who had a real cancer was congratulated by a doctor. I have a good news for you. It's actually not cancer. And that person, when the story was told to us by a professor, when I was in medical university, it was already 8 years since that story happened, and that person was living and enjoying the life. While the person who didn't have the cancer died in 2 months. Then, how the story actually came up? Because the relatives of the person who didn't have the cancer came to the doctor trying to understand. You told that it's not a cancer. Now, 2 months, he's dead. And they begin an investigation process. And looking through papers in archive, they just found that it's not his date of birth. Then they just found another person with the same name with actually his date of birth. What's the learning of this story? Right or wrong signal. A person who didn't have a cancer sent a wrong signal from the brain, and he died from cancer. A person who got the right, fake good news, but sent the right signal. It's not a cancer, I'll just make extra push, and I'll be living. And he did a push, he got treated, and he got well, and he lived years after. It all depends from a shape of our brain. The brain is the most powerful organ. When we talk about lab, as I told you in the story, when we talk about diagnosis, when we go to just a regular, maybe yearly checkout, I remember when I was, a professor told me, or he warned us as students, when you study a certain disease, just be careful. Don't compare yourself to what you're reading. Because 50% of the diseases you are studying, you'll find symptoms matching how you feel that day when you read, or how you felt a month ago. And you'll get scared. Oh, I have this. Oh, I have to check this. Oh, probably I'm very sick. Oh, I'm going to die. Many people, they feel a headache. Headache today, headache tomorrow. A week passes, they feel headache. They go Google. Headache, Tylenol, that'll help. Possible, what possible? Google gives, like a cancer. And what they begin to imagine, I have cancer. And they begin to think how to tell to my husband, I have cancer, what to do, this is the end of my life. And some people, they get so stressed, they auto-suggest to themselves the problem, that they really end with that problem. We need to think positive. Our brain can help us to heal us. I'll tell you another true story. My wife, we were living in Sacramento, and it was just a couple of years as we moved to the United States. My wife didn't speak English at all in those days, and she was listening to Sacramento Russian radio, and she won a voucher, traveling voucher for $50. How? And this is all about the question. On the radio, they had a show. They ask you a question. Whoever calls first with the right answer gets $50 voucher. My wife calls me, hey, there is a radio show. I don't have time to explain. Here's the question. Look in Google. There was a soccer game, and there was a soccer player. He did an error, and the judge considered that was kind of a very severe error, and he removed him from the field. He was running and hit somebody, and he was kind of, the judge said that it was, on purpose done, so he removed him from the field. The question was, why he was very, very thankful to the judge after. I looked on Google, I found the answer. That person had a car accident, and from after car accident, he was speechless. He couldn't speak. And he was so mad at judge that he actually began to yell at him speaking. And then he just kept quiet because he realized that he is speaking. And then he says, praise the Lord for that I was removed from the field. Another true story. This happened in Russia. Maybe it can possibly happen in America, I don't know, but that's happened in Russia. The special forces were after one guy, drug dealer, but they messed up the apartments, and they broke the door in the wrong apartment. So what happened? There was a young guy laying in a bed, and they yelled at him, stand up and hands on the wall. No move. He says, stand up or hands on the wall or I'll shoot you. He stood up, he made a couple passes, and he fell. He stood up again and he placed his hands on the wall. In this moment, all this yelling, his mother comes in. She sees her son standing to the wall, and she says, "Thank you, guys. He was paralyzed for 2 years." Was he paralyzed? His brain was paralyzed. The paralyzed was here. You know, many people, and I saw even a movie, one of them, I don't remember even, but it was a movie about a lady who got a problem here, and then her husband helped her to understand that she can walk. She just has to believe that she can walk, and she began to walk. All this movie was about this, kind of drama in the family and how she was recovering from that. So many problems are here. People fix their problems. People suggest to themselves problems. And they, as I said, they end up suffering from that very problem. While they could get well if they would reset their brain, reset their thinking in a positive direction. And many times, if I say, "I cannot do it," I just cannot do it. And people say, "I cannot quit smoking. I just cannot." And guess what? They cannot. But if a person says, "I can, I will," in this direction to set a brain, they can quit smoking or whatever, the wrong habits they want to quit. Since the church is above us, so let me quote the Bible. Apostle Paul says, "I can everything in Jesus." So, you see how the scientists, they proved the long ago proven fact, spoken by apostles in 2,000 years ago, that everything starts here, from our brain. Have you ever heard about the placebo effect? Placebo effect is a very interesting phenomenon. When the scientists were researching some new drugs, long time ago, this is, long phenomena, studied long ago phenomena. There were two groups, actually 3 groups. One group was receiving the new drug, the new prescribed, formula. Second group, they did not receive anything. And the third group, they were receiving just a white powder. There was nothing included in those pills, just a white powder. But they were told that they are receiving new, very expensive drug. And guess what? The group number 1 improved, and group number 3 also improved, while they never received the actual component, the actual formula. Why? And scientists begin to scratch their head, how to understand. And this phenomena was studied, and you can find a lot of materials on this phenomena on Google, and a lot of real practical examples. But this is what it is. Many people, they get well only because they were told, "You see, I give you a very expensive drug. This is a new. If you'll take it, I guarantee you will get better." And people believe in it. And because they believe in it, they really get better. How faith works, nobody can explain. There is no such scientist today that can explain how the actual faith works. The only thing they can admit a fact that the person who has faith, either in that pill, either in God, either in natural remedies, what they're using, either in juicing, fasting, whatever they do to improve their health, if you don't believe it, don't expect a lot of improvement. But if you believe in it, your brain sends a right signal and your body gets well. the right signals from the neurons. They don't know where is that signal generated in the brain. Nobody knows how it is generated. But the fact is there. Faith helps people to get better. When you are using, for example, let's say you have a problem and you decided to do a cleansing program, let's say 10-day juicing and then to a 1 month on raw, or you just simply trying to quit a bad habit, smoking or eating too much fat or eating after 9 p.m. and or whatever you are trying to do. If you set your brain in the right direction, and if you will believe in what you're going to do, that will help you to improve whatever you're trying to improve, you will see the result. For example, if somebody has a problem because of intoxication, because of a wrong diet, if a person is fasting on juices, of course, the person will get better. Because those toxins are eliminated from the body, and if you start the exercise, if you start drinking enough water, you will get much better, even if you don't believe in it. But if you add to that faith, you will double the result. Of course, I'm speaking in general, because everybody is a unique case. I cannot say that, I cannot guarantee that you will double the result. I'm speaking in general. I know many people who had cancer and they were solely on natural remedies and they live till today, while they were promised half a year maximum, 3 months. Faith is a co-worker of a natural remedies. Sometimes I just know that some people use natural remedies which actually doesn't work in the direction what they believe they work. But it works for them just because they have faith in it. I know some people who were using certain natural remedies, certain herbs, certain teas, which were not specifically assigned to that, or they never was reported that they help that disease. But because people believe in it, it improves. They get well, they get better. Of course, there is a lot of natural remedies which are specifically assigned to specific health problem, and people who use them, they get better. I mean, they feel improvement. But they'll get much faster. They'll see much faster the results if they will employ another co-worker called faith. Your brain can heal you or can kill you. As I told you the stories, a person who believed, who auto-suggested, I'll die in 3 months, I have cancer. He died from cancer 1 month prior that he promised to himself. I just brought you a couple real stories. There is a lot of more stories I can bring to you. But this is important, how we set our brain. One lady, she tried to keep a diet. So on a refrigerator, she put a big, piece of paper with a marker written, I don't eat after 6 p.m. a husband came and corrected AM. Why? For joke, because that note was not helping her. That note was there, but she was eating after 6 p.m. and after 9 p.m. So husband corrected and he erased p.m. and he wrote a.m. So after 6 a.m. for sure his wife doesn't eat. So why many our when we settle something, okay, I want to do this, I want to achieve this, and it comes that we realize that it doesn't work for us. Sometimes when we settle a goal, I want to quit this habit, I want to start eating healthier, I want to start drinking enough water. A true story from my family. My wife, she's the one who doesn't drink enough water. And sometimes she was really upset that I was constantly, drink water, please drink water. I was bringing her water, have some water. So finally, I quit talking to her. Then what I found a wonderful book. I didn't plan to tell you this story. I'm not remember the title of the book, but I'll try to look it up. So I gave her a book, Your Body Needs Water, something like that title. It was a kind of maybe 100 pages booklet, little book. I said, read it. She read through, and that book seems like convinced her to drink water. Why? Because she found her symptoms described there as a lack of water. And when she found that, she just realized that she was reading, it was described exactly how she was feeling, what she was suffering of. And then when she began to drink water, she just realized that her symptoms went away. And she realized that it's all she was suffering that because she didn't have enough water. And her symptom was pain here. Quite often. And that book was stating very clear that pain in the left or right, in the bottom of your abdominal area, is the first, and I mean kind of, very often repeat of that pain, is the first symptom that your body needs water. She began to drink water. She got well. She forgot about it. Now, headache is very often a result of body lacking water. Now, you see, I brought you my wife. Until some people, they need a conviction to begin to drink water. Some people, they are easier to believe. Some people, they are easier to trust someone. Some people even trust Google, as you said. But some people, unless they're convicted, they don't believe it. But, you see, either through conviction, either through the personal experience, either through somebody's stories or somebody's experience, your relatives, or you just heard a story, let's learn something out of it. To get better, we need to send a right signal from our brain. To send a right signal, we need faith. It's connected. You cannot detach body from brain. Whatever body is affected in one part, as I told you, the pain is here, is in the brain. So then, to cure that pain, the right signal has to go here from the brain. And if we send that right signal, it helps healing. If to speak about healing. Healing sometimes works in a miraculous way. I know people who, as I said, who use just natural remedies, who were just on a raw diet for half a year. They were on juices for up to a month because they had cancer or similar severe diseases, which kind of, as soon as you have it, you know that your days are counted. And I know many, many people, personally I know them, I spoke to them, who got well and they defeated their sickness, their health problem with the natural remedies, but faith was there. And they combined the natural remedies with prayer. Just, I want to tell you one thing. God does not belong to any church. We can ask a question, if the church is recognized by God, that's another story. But God does not belong to any church. But God can be your personal helper if you ask. Just ask. To make a final conclusion of our study today. Next time, next session or next part number 2 of this study, we'll have in February. And we will be talking about food, how it affects brain, and how healthy diet improves the brain work and helps healing process. And we will speak about it with the practical illustrations. We'll talk about how important, even how the food smells, how the food looks like. Should we eat the food which is not attractive? And emotions, how the food or food impact on emotions. We'll talk that in part number 2. In part number 3, we'll talk about stress in details.